Before we step inside tonight's story, I want you to do something important. If you're watching this alone, turn off your lights, put on headphones, and make sure you hit the subscribe button right now. On HollowEyes, we uncover the darkest stories, the most terrifying encounters, and the haunted places you're too afraid to enter. Once we walk into this hospital together, there's no going back, so subscribe now, because this is one nightmare you'll want to witness until the end. Imagine a hospital that has stood silent for over 40 years. Its walls are cracked, its windows shattered, yet the smell of medicine and rot still lingers in the air. Locals whisper that the building was cursed long before the fire that destroyed it. Cursed by the screams of patients who were never released. They say that every night at midnight, the hospital comes alive again, not with the living, but with the dead. My team and I decided to find out if the stories were true. What we discovered inside was worse than anything we had imagined. The hospital was built in the 1940s. It was once the pride of the city, a place where thousands of lives were saved, but it also had a darker reputation. Patients spoke of unethical experiments. Doctors obsessed with procedures that blurred the line between science and cruelty. In a basement where cries could be heard even when the halls above were silent. Then, in 1978, a fire tore through the operating wing. Dozens of patients and staff died. Some were trapped behind locked doors. Others were burned alive. The hospital never reopened, yet the stories continued, of lights flickering in the windows, of voices carried on the wind, of shadows moving through the wards. It was 11:45 p.m. when we arrived. My team, Mark, the cameraman, Sarah, the EVP specialist, and Daniel, our tech expert, stood beside me at the rusted iron gates. Our gear was ready. Night vision cameras, EMF detectors, spirit boxes, and audio recorders. The air was unnaturally cold, our breaths fogging as if we had stepped into another world. I pushed open the gate and the hinges screamed like a dying soul. Ahead, the hospital loomed, its broken windows like empty eye sockets. "This is it," I whispered into the camera. "Tonight, HollowEyes enters the place no one dares to go." We stepped into the emergency ward. The air hit us immediately, a mix of mold, rot, and faint iron, like blood left to dry decades ago. Our flashlights pierced the gloom, revealing overturned gurneys and peeling paint. Daniel's EMF detector started to beep rapidly. "There's no power here," he muttered nervously. "This shouldn't be happening." Then we all froze. Somewhere ahead in the ICU, we heard a cough, soft, human. But the ICU had been locked and sealed since 1978. We followed the sound. The hallway stretched on forever, lined with wheelchairs and rusted for stands. Mark muttered, "I swear something's watching us." Sarah gripped her recorder tight, whispering into it, "If anyone is here with us, can you tell us your name?" Static hissed in response. Then a faint voice whispered, "Leave." We all stopped in our tracks. Sarah's hand shook as she replayed it. The word was clear. "Leave." We pushed forward and entered the ICU. Beds lined the walls, covered in sheets of dust, yet one was different. The mattress was indented, as if someone had just been lying there. Mark raised his camera. "Guys, something's wrong with this." Before we could respond, the heart monitor beside the bed flickered on, its flat line suddenly pulsing. All of us stumbled back, staring in disbelief. There was no power in the building. We left the ICU quickly, moving deeper into the hospital. The air grew colder. We entered the children's ward next. Faded murals of smiling animals and cartoon characters stretched across the walls, their colors chipped and peeling. Tiny beds sat in neat rows, most of them broken. In one corner, an old rocking horse moved slowly back and forth, creaking. Sarah whispered, "No wind." No reason for it to move. Suddenly, a faint giggle echoed through the ward, high-pitched, childlike. Mark swung his camera around, capturing only darkness. Then another, sound like a rubber ball bouncing. We turned to see a red ball rolling across the floor, stopping right at Daniel's feet. He swore under his breath, his voice trembling. "We need to get out now." We turned, and under the thin blanket, we saw the shape of a small body rise slowly. Mark whispered, Is that a child?" I took a step closer. The blanket suddenly collapsed flat again. The bed was empty. We hurried out, shaken, and made our way toward the morgue. The smell grew stronger as we descended into the lower wing. The walls here were damp, streaked with mold. Heavy doors lined the hallway, each marked with peeling letters. We pushed open the morgue door, and the stench of decay hit us like a wall. Rows of cold storage drawers lined the walls. One stood half open. The skin was gray, leathery, but the face moved. The eyes snapped open.
House.
Daniel screamed, slamming the drawer shut. But the sound of banging came immediately from inside, fists pounding the metal, muffled screams echoing through the room. We backed away in horror as the other drawers began to rattle, one after another, shaking violently as if dozens of corpses were trying to claw their way out. We fled the morgue, slamming the door behind us. By now, it was just past midnight.
House.
That was when the entire hospital seemed to awaken. Lights flickered on, casting sickly glows down the corridors. Machines beeped in distant rooms, monitors pulsed. The hospital was alive again. We stumbled into the main ward and froze. Dozens of figures lay in beds, hooked up to invisible IVs. Nurses moved silently between them, their faces pale, their eyes hollow, ignoring us as if we weren't there. One doctor turned slowly to face us. Half his face was melted, skin hanging in charred strips. He opened his mouth, and black smoke poured out, rolling across the room. Sarah screamed, clutching my arm, but the doctor simply raised a finger and pointed directly at us before vanishing. Something drew us toward the basement. Locals had always said it was the worst part of the hospital, where experiments had been performed on unwilling patients. The stairs creaked under our weight, and the deeper we went, the colder it became. The smell was unbearable, like burned flesh and chemicals. The basement was a nightmare of rusted cages, overturned wheelchairs, and shelves filled with jars of unrecognizable remains. In the center stood an operating table, straps still fastened, still stained. Next to it sat an old reel-to-reel recorder. Without warning, it clicked on and filled the room with distorted screams. Mark dropped his camera, his hands shaking violently. "We shouldn't be here," he whispered again. Before we could move, the basement door slammed shut behind us. Shadows on the walls began to twist, stretching into grotesque shapes. Invisible hands clawed at our clothes and skin. Sarah shrieked as something yanked her hair, dragging her across the floor. Daniel's equipment was torn from his hands, sparking and shattering. My throat tightened as icy fingers wrapped around my neck. Out of the darkness, she appeared a nurse, her face burned and blistered beyond recognition, holding a scalpel. She leaned close to me, her voice a rasp that cut through the screams. "The hospital never closed," she whispered. "You are our patients now." The walls shook violently, the floor cracked, and lights burst overhead. One by one, my team was swallowed by the shadows. Mark vanished first, his screams fading into silence. Sarah was pulled backward into the darkness, her recorder clattering to the floor. Daniel tried to run, but was dragged screaming into the cages. I was left alone, the nurse's burned face inches from mine, the scalpel gleaming as she raised it high. And then blackness. I don't know how we escaped. Maybe they let us go. Maybe they wanted us to tell their story. But when I opened my eyes, we were outside.
House.
The hospital loomed behind us, silent and lifeless, as if nothing had happened. My hands still shook as I clutched the camera. Later, when I reviewed the footage, my blood froze. The last frame, we weren't alive, standing there with our gear. In the reflection of the broken glass, we were lying in hospital beds, hooked to machines, lifeless, just like the others. The hospital had claimed us too,